Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I've been having some ideas recently, and I thought I'd make a video about them because they feel a lot more significant than I thought they'd be. Let's say I think I've had a pretty major revelation. Um, and just to explain how that all happened. Obviously, I recently did a video about this tarot, Genoese tarot, and while I really like it, I'd been thinking about I'd been thinking about the perfect merger between like tarot and playing cards, right? That's been a long thread in my recent videos, right? And obviously, this comes close. And there's some ideas here that I really appreciate, like the non-reversible sort of mirrored cards, right? Especially in the major arcana, or actually only in the major arcana, because the minors. So as you can see, for example, the King of Spades, he's completely symmetrical on both sides, right? But like if you go to the minor arcana, the major arcana, there are minor differences. Um, which potentially enable you to have like two different interpretations depending on which side comes up. And but I don't know. I've been looking into cartomancy more, and I'm inclined to say traditional cartomancy at this point. Which means basically because the thing is like in English, the English-speaking world seems to make such a sharp contrast between tarot and cartomancy which is weird because cartomancy is reading the cards, right? So tarot is a form of cartomancy. But obviously, when we say cartomancy in English, we refer specifically to reading playing cards, usually. But at the same time, it is an interesting phenomenon because I'm starting to think that there's more to playing cards than we initially thought, and that this is another like extra layer of disguise, let's say, on top of what we've already discussed, like in the history of tarot and things like that. That the tarot is basically a disguised, book of wisdom disguised as a deck of playing cards to avoid persecution and things like that. But I think the playing cards themselves are an even deeper layer of disguise of the same thing. And I'll show you how I got to that idea. But so before I get there, I started reading up on the history of tarot and things like that, and the history of playing cards, and this is like, uh, I have to admit that I think I've made a big mistake in like previous videos when I said that I think a deck of playing cards is a corruption of the tarot and a shortened tarot deck, basically, right? So with the major arcana removed and things like that. But I'm starting to think it's the opposite. It's the other way around now. So let me start where I started watching some videos and stuff like that and reading some articles. And obviously, if you look at if you start looking at French suited playing cards, let me see if I can find the. Here you go, the Wikipedia article, right? We do know that these have have existed since at least the 16th century, right? 1500s, which means that they pre-existed, right? So these come from France with their modern suits, right? The black and red suits. But they already existed before the Tarot de Marseille became a thing in France. And obviously, a lot of the cards feature similar art style, you know, because they're woodcuts. It's the same technology that they used for these are Spanish suited or Italian suited cards, but here you start seeing like the combination, right? So hearts, crescents. The crescents are another thing. I'm not sure what the François Clerc of Lyon transitional deck. Oh yeah. So these, right? But you know what I mean. They look very similar to the Tarot de Marseille in terms of art style as well. And obviously back then they weren't reversible just yet and things like that. But what's also interesting is, for example, the faces in those historical decks had names, were assigned names from historical and mythological figures, allegedly. And these are explained in this article, right? So you have, and they seem to be completely random, right? But you have Charlemagne, David, Julius Caesar, and Alexander the Great. Those are the kings. Then you have the queens, or Judith, Pallas, so Pallas Athena, Rachel, and another biblical. And the Queen of Argine, and Argine is an anagram of Regina. So this is not a historical figure or something. There's something weird about that one. So the Queen of Clubs is, and then you have the Jacks, La Hire, Jack of Spades is Ogier, Hector of Troy, a crusading knight for some reason, and then Lancelot. Right, so these are all anachronistic figures, but if you pay attention, we got Pallas, we got Charlemagne, we got Ogier, who is a paladin, and we got Hector of Troy, who refers to, it's Hector of Troy, but at the same time, allegedly, that's what they say on Wikipedia, is that he was considered like one of the noble pagans, or exemplary pagans like Aristotle or Plato or things like that, and that he was like the forerunner of like medieval chivalry, the chivalric code, and that he was basically a crusading knight in antiquity. But at the same time, obviously, there is the city of Troyes in France, and there may well have been a Hector of Troy who actually went on the Crusades. I mean, there's no way of telling if that is true or not. So what I'm trying to say is this, because the theme of the deck that I want to make, I want to make my own tarot deck at some point, right? And I've been stuck with this name, which is the Palatine Tarot. I want to make the Palatine Tarot. And if you watch my previous videos, especially about the Palatines and things like that, you'll know why that is, right? But so it looks like a large chunk of that, like these how do you say, historical remnants, let's say, that I'm latching onto for my for my research, are already included in the playing card in the historical playing card deck from France. And so I started watching videos about the playing cards, right? And you have a whole litany of trivia, basically, about playing cards, right? And you've probably heard that before. Like, there are 52 cards, which are equal to 52 weeks of the year. And if you add all the cards together, so all the values of the cards together, so ace plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 for the jacks, 12 for the queens, and 13 for the kings, you get 91 per suit. And then if you add all the 4 suits together, you get 364. That's the total value of all the cards. Plus 1 pip for the joker is 365. And the second joker, which is the guarantee card in a bicycle deck, which is basically a guarantee that it will fit the calendar, is the leap year, the last joker, right? And there's more things like that. There's a whole philosophy around your birth card and things like that. So you can use playing cards for these things, but like the mathematical precision of the playing cards is much more, to me, once I started realizing what that all implies, is much more elegant than that of the tarot. And the tarot has also, has a lot of, how do you say, correspondences, right? So especially the major arcana. The major arcana are like the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and they're like the 12 signs plus the 7 planets. But and all that stuff, but it gets a little, it feels a little cumbersome, right? And then if that's what the 22 major arcana are, then why do we also have the minor arcana, and what's their importance? And in the minor arcana you have 14 court cards, which they try to associate with like the 12 signs. But like if you remove the 4 knights that are the additional court cards in the minor arcana, you get 12 court cards, which is what you have in a deck of playing cards. And it just makes more sense to have 12 playing cards for 12 signs of the zodiac rather than 12 plus another 4 that you don't know what to do with, right? And then you have all these changes in the tarot, right? So 8 and 11 in the major arcana keep swapping places between Marseille and Rider-Waite traditions. The names keep changing, the numbering keeps changing. Some decks, like the Minciate, have another 12 cards on top. And those are old decks, right? So this has been going on since the very beginning. And then if you look at regional decks from Italy, you find that a bunch of them have been shortened for various reasons, right? And obviously that has to do with regulations, right? And playing cards went through the same growing pains, right? Which is, for example, why the Ace of Spades is considered to be a bad card, because it's been, it was monopolized by the state, and counterfeiting a Ace of Spades was punishable by death, basically by hanging. So it's considered a death card, right? So that's the story behind that and stuff like that. So there's all this trivia around playing cards, and obviously playing cards have a much stronger pull on our subconscious, right? So we use a lot more, especially in English, a lot more sayings, common sayings from playing cards, like following suit, or an ace up my sleeve, or a trump. I have a trump card, or things like that. All these sort of sayings. But obviously, a trump card could be from tarot. But you get where I'm going with this, right? The same with poker and stuff like that. I've talked about that in my book as well. But so what I did, I was, at some point I noticed, and I mean, I had noticed that before, and but especially thinking about the reversible cards in the Genoese tarot, I realized that some cards in a deck of playing cards are reversible, right? So obviously, if you look at the Ace of Hearts, for example, already, the heart is not symmetrical on both sides. So if you put it upside down, you have an upside down Ace of Hearts, right? But like if you do it with this card, whichever way you turn it, it looks the same, right? So this is not reversible. Neither is the 3 of diamonds. But for example, the 9 of spades, even though it is symmetrical, the center one points in one direction, and then you have 4 that point in the other and 5 that point in the other. So this means that this one is reversible, and so on. So I started taking those apart, right? And I'll start making a pile here for you so you can see it live in action. 3. These are not reversible, so the faces are not reversible anyway, right? 3, 3, 4. The Ace of Diamonds. The Jokers don't count. 5 is reversible. 2 is not. King is not. The 9 is reversible. The Joker is not. The 10 is not. The Jack is not. The 2 is not. This one is reversible. 2, 8. So again, right, we have an 8 of clubs and an 8 of diamonds. The 8 of diamonds isn't reversible, but the 8 of clubs is, right? So you have five that look to me and 3 that look the other way, or the other way around, depending on which you prefer, right? A jack is not. The 7 of diamonds is reversible. 7 of spades. The queen is not. The ace is. The 6 of spades is reversible. 5 of hearts. 8 of hearts. 5 of. The 10s are all irreversible. The 4s are irreversible. The 8 again. 5 is irreversible. 5 of diamonds. Also reversible, non-reversible, reversible, none, reversible, reversible, none, reversible, none, reversible, reversible, and none. Okay, and then we count the reversible cards. Look what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So you get what that means, right? That means that potentially a playing card deck is already a tarot deck. And you could use the reversible cards to correspond to the major arcana. And then you have a major arcana within the minor arcana. And which makes sense, because an arcanum is a secret, right? So this is a secret hidden in plain sight. So you have 30 minor arcana and 22 major arcana in the deck of playing cards. And there's another thing, because, okay, so this deck now I've split. But in my other deck, my bicycle dragonback deck, I've also ordered the cards, so you can see. So we can look at some patterns together, right? So once again, the jokers are technically reversible, but they don't count for this inquiry, for this thing, right? But so we have 3 aces. The ace of diamonds is irreversible. We have 3 3s. The 3 of diamonds is irreversible. We have 3 5s. The 5 of diamonds is irreversible. We have 3 6s. 6, 6, 6. The 6 of diamonds is irreversible. But we have 4 7s. All 7s are reversible. Isn't that amazing? Is there something poetic about this? Then we have 3 8s. The 8 of diamonds is irreversible. And then we have 3 9s. And the 9 of diamonds once again is irreversible. And then in terms of the irreversible cards, we have aces. We have 4 2s. And we have 1 ace. 4 2s. 1 3. 4 4s. 1 5. 1 6. 1 8. 1 9. And 4 10s. So these all feel significant. I haven't thought all this through yet. I don't know exactly what. Oh yeah, and obviously the court cards, right? The court cards are all irreversible, right? So if we want to add, for example, those historical figures from the historic French deck, that won't change the meaning of the cards, right? But then this way you can have a tarot deck using the 52 cards and the mathematical precision of a normal playing card deck. Right? But obviously I still need to figure out like what correspondences, which card is which in the major arcana, or do they correspond, or do we need to throw out the major arcana in its entirety and make up a new one that's going to fit this numbering, right? I'm still thinking about this. Or maybe it doesn't need to change at all, right? Maybe we just need to know that this exists and see what comes out of this knowledge, right? But this is, like, the way I see it is because this is all based on, like, incremental changes based on legislation and things like that in the pack of playing cards, and, like, the practical aspects of creating a playable deck of cards, right? Because, for example, the fact that they became reversible in the first place was an evolution like that, you know, so that they're recognizable from both ends of the table. But at the same time, like the geometry of the suits, and this is funny, right? Because I've been reading Alejandro Jodorowsky's Way of the Tarot about the Tarot de Marseille, right? And for example, he explains that you know, we know that we're dealing like with a sacred object because it's not completely symmetrical, right? And it has that like a certain pattern of 3 and 4, rather than 4 suits that are equivalent to each other. You have 3 suits and then one that is slightly different, right? So you have the spades. You have 3 artificial suits, which are like the spades, which or the swords it's a sword that needs to be made from metal. You have a cup that needs to be made from metal. You have a coin that needs to be stamped. But then you have the staff, the wand, that is a natural item. It's just a branch of wood, right? And it's the same kind of with the playing cards, right? So you have spades, hearts, but they are different, right? So spades, hearts, and clubs are actually no. Yeah, it's the other way around. So hearts, clubs, and diamonds are natural items. Show up in nature, right? So diamonds are a natural phenomenon, basically, of how do you say? What's the word again? Carbon, right? Carbon under pressure, it turns into a diamond. A club is just basically a plant, or those trefoils are basically a plant, right? Grows from the ground. A heart is like a part of our body, right? But the spade is a weapon or a tool. So it's the other way around, but at the same time you have a similar pattern, like with the symmetricality of the cards, right? So three of the suits are asymmetrical, right? They have a top and a bottom, right? So you can view them upside down and you have a different symbol or a different orientation. And only one of them is symmetrical. That's another factor. And then, and that makes for this interesting synthesis in the cards, right? But again, I haven't determined all the what that all means, and what I do think it means is that we can forgo the tarot, we can forgo the major arcana, by integrating them into the pack of playing cards, and which is funny, because I always found it strange that there are doubles in the tarot, right? So you have the Lovers and you have the Two of Cups, which aren't exactly the same. And originally the Lovers is supposed to be like a choice or a dichotomy or whatever, or like making distinction, or choosing like virtue over temptation, right? But it's still called the Lovers, and people still have a certain association with it in their brain, right? So if I wanted to do the Lovers, for example, I would probably put it on the Three of Hearts, because it has a similar imagery as well. There's 3 elements, and then obviously there's also the Cupid on top. But you could kind of view it like that, and still, you have the same kind of dichotomy here, because the middle one needs to look in one direction over the other. So you still have this element of a choice. So you could almost say that the 3 with the logo underneath is the Cupid himself, for example. Things like that. Or you have, for example, I don't know, maybe like Death, Trump 13, and the 10 of Swords, for example. Just naming an example. Or maybe the Tower and the 10 of Swords, for example. So there's a lot of overlap, and maybe we can forgo the 22 cards and incorporate them here, right? And and finally merge those two together. And so So these are some ideas, right? And obviously, I wonder about the history of that all too, because I am starting to think, because obviously we've discussed like how the Renaissance, the role the Renaissance played in like in setting up this new chronology and all this new false history and things like that, and creating this fabricated antiquity and things like that. And obviously, the tarot comes from Renaissance Italy. Right, we've already established that. We know that the Solabusca and the Tarot de Marseille are from Italy, and we know that the Solabusca is an evil tarot deck, right? It's a malefic, magical tool, right? If you want to learn more about that, I'd advise you to watch Peter Mark Adams. He's done some pretty nice interviews on YouTube, and he's written a good book about the Solabusca tarot, but I don't know if it's available. Like last time I checked, it was out of stock, or out of print even. But so what I'm trying to get at is that I suspect that the tarot is a psyop of the Jesuits or the Vatican or whatever that spread throughout Europe to replace the normal deck of playing cards. And obviously at the same time, the playing cards, they were also persecuted, right? They were called the Devil's Picture Book and stuff like that. And there was a lot of legislation to make them go away. And you know, and I don't know exactly, you know, they may have done the same with the tarot. It may have been a ruse, it may have been a psyop or whatever, or maybe it was real, you know, I don't know, because we still need to figure out like the mathematical and obviously I think it's emergent, right? I don't think they did that on purpose, right? But the 52 playing cards, they are the direct descendant of the Mamluk playing cards, right? They were also 52 cards. And the Mamluk playing cards did come from Egypt, right? So it's strange that you then have Antoine Cour de Gébelin, you know, who claims that the tarot comes from Egypt and blah de blah, and he's a Freemason, and he's a pastor, Protestant pastor, and he writes this whole encyclopedia on like the Le Monde Primitif, on like esoteric traditions around the world and stuff like that, and from that moment on, the tarot turns into this big thing, you know, and it was well, obviously this is also, you know, so bicycle cards and stuff, you know, I want to say the tarot was co-opted by Freemasonry, right? But these cards are also perpetuated by Freemasons, right? So there's books about playing cards, for example, the stuff that I told you about, those trivia facts that I told you in the beginning. Those are all laid out in Freemasonic books about playing cards, and you have a magical order called the OOM, the Order of Magi, who are, you know, if you look them up on Wikipedia, they're like the order, you know, they're like an organization of magicians, but they're the Order of Magi. I can't find it now. Order of Magi. Order of Magi, multiple concepts, wizarding order in the first okay. In history, Magi anime series from book. Okay, so this may be a bit stranger, but what I think, Real World Society focused on magic and related events. This is the one, I think. And then with magic, they mean like magic tricks, right? That's what I think. But that could be a ruse. But it's also interesting, like how all these magic trick people, all these magicians, they have this obsession with playing cards, right? And they collect them, and they do reviews about them, and then they check how well they shuffle and things like that, which is funny too. But like I feel like, you know, these entertainers, you know, we know that there are Masonic lodges for entertainers and stuff as well, right? So I think they know a lot more than they're letting on. Obviously, I don't. For me personally, I don't think that's what the cards are about, right? Doing magic tricks and gambling and stuff like that. Although, it could be part of it, So yeah, I'm still undecided what to do with this information. I think I want to experiment with those reversible cards, see how they relate to the major arcana, what correspondences I can get there, and then restore the historical names to the portraits, and then make a deck based on that, right? And obviously, I do want to redesign some of the cards because, and that's going to be a pain in the ass. That might take me years. But I think I have found a new avenue for research, and I'm gonna have to do this right, because so far my I'll be honest, my historical research hasn't been great, and honestly, I haven't been reading as much as I should have lately, and most of my information comes from the internet. I'll be completely honest about that. But there's definitely stuff, I found it in books too, and, I'm going to have to start looking it up and start working out my bibliography. But I do think both the playing cards and the tarot have a lot to say about about the new chronology and about our secret history and all that stuff. And I do think, honestly, the way at this rate, the way this is going now, I do think the playing cards, there's something to them that we haven't discussed yet. And everything I've discussed here right now, right? So both like about the 22 reversible cards and the 12 court cards, which correspond to the 12 signs of the zodiac, nobody has talked about before. These are completely new ideas that I've just brought to the table, right? And it makes me wonder, am I making this up, or is this like a natural? Because it could be that people just haven't realized that yet, because the playing card is the result of incremental changes, much more so even than the tarot, because the playing cards are based on geometry and on practicality, right? So you need to be able to fan the cards out and know what cards you have without betraying your hand to your opponent and things like that. So they have a very specific design. And then the suits as well, There's something to these particular suits. And I also need to talk about the spades. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to do that for a different video, because otherwise we're going to get off topic. But I think the playing cards have a lot of interesting secrets. And I feel... And they haven't changed through the years, they haven't changed as much as the tarot. They've only changed in order to make them more comprehensible. But the number of cards, the meanings of the cards, the correspondences with the mathematics, the calendrical mathematics of the deck of cards, has remained the same since the 15th, 16th century. Right, and which could very well mean that it's even since the Mamluk cards even so since the 14th century, right? So I don't want to say that we might have to throw out our tarot collection, but it's honestly, I haven't decided yet if that's what this means, right? But honestly, it's starting to look like it. It's starting to look like tarot is just this, playing cards with baby wheels. And maybe if you actually really want to become a cartomancer, and if you want to start doing magic with cards, you need to start using these. So yeah, I hope this was as interesting for you as it was for me. Obviously, I'm only getting started, and this has thrown my world upside down as well, because I used to believe the tarot was the real origin, just a week ago. And now I don't know what to think, So, and obviously, you know, I think this is the real tarot. That's what I think now. You know, because there are 22, there's a major arcana inside the minor arcana. So, yeah, we're gonna have to think about this, guys. I'm gonna get back to you with you know, my next video is gonna be about the spades and the swords. I wanted to do this one a while ago, and now with this new information, there might be new insights coming up. So I won't rush it. But yeah, I think, you know, I think we're on the right track here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you around. Bye.